And to add to Manish's comments, on the comment of, every drug that we, have up here is something someone else rejected, there's a biotech publication, I can't remember which one it is, and the editor of it does a talk every year where he shows like the drugs that have been approved in the last year and how many different hands the drugs were in before they finally got approved. And the lowest was 3, one got as high as like 14 that it switched hands. So just because someone else doesn't like it, I mean, the proof positive is that doesn't necessarily mean that's not a drug. And Manish is absolutely right. It oftentimes takes someone who's got a different set of eyes, a different way of developing it, a different indication to go into, and you end up helping patients. That's the most important part.
I have an experience from my own life that I was told by the head of R&D at the Upjohn Company, which doesn't exist anymore, that it would not be possible to make a protein into a drug, or an antibody or any of these other things. He just didn't believe biotechnology.
Yeah, what year was that?
It was 1976.
Oh, boy.
Because we saw the biotechnology revolution coming. There was already all over the place. But he said small molecules, small organic molecules were the only things that would make good drugs. These other things could not be drugs. So I believe if large pharmaceutical companies were left in charge and there wasn't this biotech industry and the startup industry, there would not be a biotech revolution. I don't think these people that ran those companies at that time had the vision to see how much change was coming. It required little companies to start up and take that risk and show that you could make drugs and important drugs out of them. So now the paradigm for companies, we're talking about what the paradigm would be. They would rather let the small startups take all the risk. And once they show that it works and it's valuable, then they're willing to buy it at a more elevated price. And they don't have to take the risk, and they're willing to spend money to buy someone else's idea once it shows it works.
Your model is quite different than the other three, being a platform technology. So how do you decide how much of your work or your resources you're going to put towards developing drugs that Meditope wants to develop, and say licensing out or working with other companies with your technology, granting your technology, access to your technology to large pharmas or other small biotechs? Do you have a plan for that, or is that just sort of opportunistic?
Yeah, no, definitely a plan. I think focus is really key, and that was actually something that our investors really wanted to see and really appreciated, especially since a lot of them come from the business world. Their biggest fear was just getting carried away with the science and losing focus and starting to work on a lot of different projects. So we went through that with them in our business plan, sort of the whole thought process. Here are all the things that we see and that we've covered in our patent portfolio of applications where this technology could be applied. But what we see as our best foot forward and where we want to focus our resources is really in ADCs for oncology, and here's why, and here's the market case and the business case for that. I will say my R&D team and my co-founders at City of Hope probably get really pissed off at me because I am just a dictator when it comes to that focus. So, we could do all this cool stuff in imaging, or we could, that's not where the money's going to.
So you're right now, you're focusing on sort of already defined ADC cargoes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So for us, really the last year and what we've been spending our initial money on is really validating our assumptions about the technology as well as the marketplace and what they want to see in an ADC developed using this technology.
Hi, question here. My name is Sharoni. Really nice stories, everybody. This is probably more towards Alan, since Alan, you've had the, you've sold a company and are building a second one now. And which are great stories, and I follow the Puma news. It's really exciting. Is it just like the entrepreneurial? I mean, do you consider yourself just more of the entrepreneurial rush, like build something beautiful and sell it, and then go and build something up, or do you have any goals of, just building a Puma, for instance, into its own independent entity? Any thoughts on that?
You always have the opportunity to either build the company to much larger scale. Do some type of a partnership, which we've seen plenty of companies do, or to sell the company. You make those decisions every day, and it's really a determination of what's in the best interest of the investors. I mean, when you run a company, you have to remember it's not all your company. You have investors, and you have to have a responsibility to them. That's the most important aspect of it. So, every case is different, and you always do what's in their best interest. So it could be any one of those three. I have to remember, because of my background being a public company biotech analyst, that's where my relationships were.
Yeah.
So that was where I had the greatest ability to raise money. I, in my career, just never had the opportunity to interact with either, the private venture capitalists or the venture arms of pharma companies. So I really can't answer that.
Yeah, so, I used to be a VC until I lost my mind and I said I'll be a CEO. So most of the deals that, we saw as a VCs, they were in conjunction with the large pharma VC firms as well. So there is a, syndicate that everybody wants to form. And, part of this is you want to be with the smartest people who are there. And also you don't want to do the dumb things alone. You want other people to do dumb things. So all of these, VC firms, whether it is the Novartis or the, GSK, I think they all tend to see things together. And the nice thing is, if those guys are involved, they have so much more depth in terms of ability to analyze science and ability to really, look at it differently. And if they say there's a thumbs up, you see suddenly the rush of everybody wants to be in that. The problem that becomes is sometimes, they don't have the same risk profile that we have. We all have very different sort of risk profiles here. And what makes, I think, some of these deals that you're seeing here different is that these are very, very high risk, deals. I'm going to actually admit one of the bigger mistakes that we did is we did not invest in Cougar when it used to be a private company. And part of that was that risk profile that we thought it was too risky for that valuation. And I'm sure Alan has heard that from many, many people that he can go and say, ha, 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 ha. There is, no, this is too rich. Oh, this will never work. Oh, no, Alan. It's like, that happens. That's just the nature of the, I think, game here. My take is, take the money when it is there, right? So don't get too carried away about the valuation. Don't get carried away about where the money is coming from. It's very rarely that people have this kind of a choices that, we can sort of decline the money for whatever reason. But in general, if there's a money on the table, you should just take it.
I don't know if I agree. Only because, I don't know how. I don't know if I agree. I guess that is true, but on the other hand, my story, if we bring IL-12, if we bring it to the clinic, if we bring it to patients, nobody else could have done it. And it's because we didn't have that money early on dictating where to go, what to do. I did it. So if you have a vision, sometimes that all gets in the way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So again, I have some history with Lena as well. So Lena was presenting, I think, in 2003 or 2004 SCVC, and there are a couple of VCs that were in there. And what were the criticisms that they had? I still remember. This is one of the problems of having sort of long-term memories. You're doing too many things, right? That you are all over the map. That you have too many projects. This will never work. And so, all those things that she has sort of proven to the world that, that is not true. But look, I have proven that this thing works in one set of model. And the other thing is, some things go and they sort of come back. 10 years ago, if I told to a VC, I'm doing a cancer vaccine company, that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no more conversation. Now I'm no longer a cancer vaccine company. I'm an immuno-oncology company. It's sort of like sharing the wow, that's $1 billion company, right? So I think the conversation changed in the last 10 years. So IL-12, 10 years ago, if she just said, I'm doing IL-12, that's the end of the conversation.
Exactly.
Today, she can say, oh, I have a new interesting cytokine that's immuno-oncology. Wow, interesting, tell me more about it. Right, so it's the timing makes a huge difference.
Timing, how things evolve, you cannot predict. Like I said, put one foot in front of the other and go if you really want to go, because you can't let these things be barriers for you.
There's a question here?
Yeah, timing's a really kind of interesting question because you all have technologies that when you pick them up, you had different timelines in mind for the financing I'm going to take. I'm going to pick this technology up and I'm going to take it to its next destination. And you had a time frame in mind. I like this technology because in this time frame I can achieve this thing with it. Can you talk a little bit about when you first picked up your technology? What was the time frame you had in mind, and today when you think about things, what's the time horizon where that that next destination's just going to perspective of short-term, long-term, how you look at things?
I'll start and tell you, I never thought it would be 10 years before I'm hopefully getting into oncology. But things happened, things came along. But I didn't really have an exact timeline. I just knew the process that had to be completed. And like I said, it was one step in front of the other. I didn't really have a timeline, but I didn't think it'd take this long.
Stephanie?
On the other side, for I think both of us, being public companies, we have to project out a timing and sort of try to be as close to as possible. There'll be some delays and things like that, but I think our projections of the timelines are probably much more close to what we had projected when we were raising money than where we are.
Yeah, so I would say that the timelines, yes. The opportunities, no, because there's a famous saying, opportunities multiply as they are seized, and especially in science, that happens. I mean, when we bought neratinib, our first thought was we'll just focus in the metastatic oncology setting. And then more opportunities came up in newly diagnosed patients, in adjuvant, in patients that had certain genetic mutations. And, a lot of times these were situations where, someone else had, called us up and said, listen, can you guys give me some free drug and I want to do some studies? And your attitude was like, okay, it's free research, I'm more than happy to. It was promising and you said, oh, well, okay, that's value. We have to go after that. There's patients we can help. And that opportunity gets bigger and bigger. And look, we now have 11 ongoing trials of neratinib. I honestly thought we'd have one. So that does happen. And, especially in the oncology field, what it means is it's that many more patients you can help. So it's a good thing.
But, also remember, to a very large extent, all of us here are really packaging dreams and selling it to the investors, right? Because, tell me another industry in which I can almost guarantee you for the next 5 years, I'll not make a single dollar. I'm going to spend a lot of money, and it's going to be all based on the, the promises. This is the really, made for, the people who sort of dream and can sell those dreams. There's a great joke that I was tempted not to tell, but now I'm going to tell. So there are 3 women who are complaining about their husbands. So one of them is married to a lawyer. So like, what's so bad about him? Oh, every night he wants to argue. And the second one, what about yours? Oh, he's a dentist. Every night he wants to see my smile. I'm just tired of this. The third one, mine is a biotech CEO. Like, biotech CEO? What does he do? After every night he says, honey, it's going to be better tomorrow. And I'm going to repent it because I know this is being recorded.
That wasn't too blue.
So kind of continuing on that theme, obviously you all have founded companies based on molecules and ultimately treatments are being looked at. But then there's a whole ecosystem in the entire biotech space which supports what you are trying to do, whether it's bioinformatics, whether it's instrumentation. So do you ever wonder about other lucrative areas within biotech, whether it is instrumentation or bioinformatics, and what opportunities do you see there? Do you ever see yourself expanding beyond just searching for drugs into some of these other potentially lucrative areas?
I don't.
I don't either.
I was going to say, because that's my comfort zone, that's where my network is, that's, that's my team's area of expertise. I think that's where I think a question came in before about sort of out-licensing and, where our focus was going to be. Those are opportunities we know somebody else is better equipped to kind of take over. So, we spend some time sort of just trying to monetize other applications of the technology that we know we don't have the expertise or background in.
The other, I think the really big reason is, think of the economics of this game, right? A phase 3, sorry, not a phase 3, a approved oncology drug is worth at least $10 billion, probably more now, right?
Depends before, but yeah.
Right, if you just look at, for example, so Onyx was acquired for about $10 billion with a drug that is about $300 million in sale. Alan's company is worth about $7 billion. This is still in the phase 3 trial that is towards that. There's several phase 2 companies that I can point to that are, over $1 billion to 3 billion. So if you look at the total amount of wealth that is being created, in this process, you are taking these assets, putting a small amount of money, but when you look at on a dollar basis, the successful companies, this is a 10x, 20x, 50x kind of returns here. We have invested so far, in terms of what we have spent from the time I joined to now, maybe about 6 or 7 million of what has actually been spent. The company is worth about $200 million. There's almost 180 million of delta that has been created. If you look at Alan, he has probably spent less than a couple of $100 million, but he has created almost a $7 billion of value. So when you are in that kind of opportunity, to go after that into other areas that don't have that kind of a multiplier effect, I'm not sure is the best interest of our time and resources.
Yeah, but I think another issue you have is, your employees have a domain knowledge, right, and an understanding of, drug development. To then say, okay, I'm going to go into devices, diagnostics, informatics, you're not going to have that knowledge in-house, right? You're not going to benefit from that. So you're talking about taking on additional infrastructure, additional costs, additional people. It's too much for a small company to do. Small companies need to focus, and they often get hurt by trying to do exactly that. We want to be a diagnostics company and a device company and a drug company. It just doesn't work. You have to focus.
How do you avoid the problem then of being a sort of a one-product wonder by the time you're almost forced to sell at that point rather than build a platform?
I think there's a lot of companies that are one-product wonders right now. I mean, Alexion sells a drug called Soliris, and that's all they sell. I think it's, what, a $40 billion company? I'm okay with that, really. I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello. I have a question. I've been working with a couple of startups, and they've resonated that it's been a kind of challenge accessing capital as well as finding the right talent for their organization. And so for people that don't have the background or a successful track record like an Alan or a Manish, can you share any sort of insight, thoughts, or guidance to these companies being forced to either go up to the Bay or down to San Diego to either access funds and or talent?
Go ahead.
I mean,
Just be careful.
Yeah, I know.
Ahmed is looking at us.
I know.
He doesn't want us to leave.
I already got chastised earlier.
Come to me after.
So my R&D team's in San Diego. and we're, so it's, I mean, for me, it was, and my network was all in the Bay Area before coming here, the Bay Area and back east. So it was really just networking.
I will say that, well, we haven't raised any venture money or the like, but finding employees, they just come. And I have great employees right here in the audience. So they will come to you. I don't know how, but they have.
I would say in terms of raising capital, I don't think the investors care where the company is physically located. I mean, that's really never a barrier. In terms of finding the employees, you're right, the number of people we would have here in LA who work in the industry, and specifically in like oncology, drug development, et cetera, is probably lower than like the Bay Area or Boston or something like that. But look, I built 2 companies doing it, so you can find the talent. And I think, we all know Amgen is here and has an oncology group, and, you can find the talent. So